Hi, I'm John with Rio Grande. Watch how I make this pendant from tube and wire, and a little help from the Jayne Redman wire and tube cutting jig. Let's get started. So here I have the jig attached to the Jayne Redman bench pin. You don't need the bench pin to use the jig. You can either mount it to a bench, or you can take and drill a hole in your normal bench pin and attach it in that manner. What I was thinking was actually taking a piece of wood, creating a piece of wood that will fit into another one of these bench pins, and then attaching it permanently so that all I would have to do is switch out the bench pin itself whenever I needed it. I'm going to go ahead and continue this with the Jayne Redman pin. I'm sure you're familiar with a tubing jig similar to this. So it has an adjustment where you can set your length. It has this little hold down arm. You place your tube in the hold down arm, and then you are holding down on this arm as you are cutting. I find this is a little bit awkward to cut. The other thing is this is not really made for left-handed people. So if you are left-handed, then you have to hold it in such a way where you're holding your finger on it, or grab it in such a way that you're using your thumb, and it can be very awkward for left-handed people. The other thing with jigs like these is large diameter tubing. And large diameter tubing becomes a problem because this does not go down far enough that it will hold it steady. It can actually slip. It's also very awkward. With the Jayne Redman jig, this can be used either right-handed or left-handed. So if you're wanting to cut tubing and you're right-handed, you would set it up in this manner, or you can spin it. And what I would do is move the jig over to one of these holes on this pin. The saw guide comes off and it can be turned around, and now it's good for those that are left-handed. Another type of jig that is out there is something like this. This is something that I've used for decades, and it works, but there are problems with this as well because it's meant to be mounted on something, and whenever you are sawing like this, which is, I find, is awkward. Another thing with this, it's great for larger tubing, but it's not really that great for small diameter tubing because trying to hold this down, depending on how big your finger is, into that groove without it moving around can be a little bit difficult. So with the Jayne Redman, you can set your length and then you can saw away and you don't have to worry about it. You have total control over the tubing, and you have a really nice, comfortable sawing motion. With the other jigs, with large tubing especially, if you try to cut large tubing in one fell swoop all the way through it, pretty much on any of these jigs, you'll never get a nice straight line. With this one, it works okay because you can slowly spin it to create your line. With this one, obviously it doesn't hold well and you really can't spin it. So if I want to cut this tubing on this jig, I can actually ride my blade against the guide and I can actually spin my tubing, creating the initial cut in my tubing. Because if you try to go all the way through thick tubing like this, your blade is going to wander, no matter how tight you keep it or try to keep it against that blade guide. So this works really well. It gives you free motion, and it's going to give you a lot cleaner cuts. And now a fabrication montage. Cut a few different size pieces of wire, and what I want to do is I want to create a little ball that'll go in between the segments that will provide a support for soldering. So I need to find the size of ball, So I'm just going to utilize different lengths of wire, do a test, and see what length of wire I need for the right size of ball that I need for my bamboo segments. Okay, let's see. This is going to go in between two of these. That one is too small. That one is still too small. Still a little bit too small. And that one, I think just about right. So now I need to make balls that are that size. Now that I know the length of segment that I need, I can actually set the guide to that length, and I can start cutting my wire. Okay, I gave the balls a quick pickle, and now I just threw them in some flux here. This is hard solder that I rolled out with my rolling mill to the thinnest that I could get it on my rolling mill, which is about 40 gauge. I don't want to add any type of amount or increase the diameter of the balls. All I want to do is use just enough that it will cover the ball. I'm not going to melt the ball and the solder together. I'm going to melt the solder onto the ball. Now back into the pickle. On three of the segments that you are going to use for the center segments, you need to drill a hole in the tube. This will allow any gases that builds up inside of the tube during the soldering process to escape. So I just let these cool. I don't pickle them because if I do, the pickle will pull into the tubing, especially if you throw your pieces in hot. It will pull that pickle right into that hole. So I don't need to pickle these. I'm not concerned about the oxides on the outside because now I'm going to take them and I'm going to texture them. The way I do that is using a cart burr. And now I'm just going to start texturing. You can see that using the right tool will make your job a lot quicker and a lot easier. And that's exactly what the Jayne Redman wire and tube cutting jig is. It's definitely the right tool. In the description below, you'll find some links to the products that I used in this video. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you found the information helpful. If you have any questions, please contact us.